All right, so today I thought we would talk about contingencies that are built into the contract. And specifically, we're going to dive into inspections. So what are contingencies? They are a way to protect the buyer in the process of the contract. So there's specific things that you have to get past in order to be able to buy the house. Sometimes you could call them maybe like jumping through hoops, might be a way to reference contingencies, but it's pretty typical and pretty normal to have at least 3 pretty basic contingencies built into your offer. Sometimes there are more. So the biggest, probably the most major contingency, it's where I see a lot of deals fall apart, is inspections. So I will never, ever tell somebody not to get a home inspection. Now, depending on the type of market that we're in, if we're in a seller's market like we were a couple of years ago and it was just wild and crazy, sometimes you brought your inspector with you to the house so that you could maybe make a more attractive offer. But just depending on the market you're in, you will have a period of time for your inspections to be completed, and you want to make sure you've built in enough time there in case you have any additional questions that the inspector raises. And there might be something about, I don't know, cut floor joist, and you're like, I want somebody to look at that. Well, we need some time to make sure we do that. And it's really, really, really important to mind the timelines for all of your contingencies in your agreement, because that's what's protecting your earnest money. Now, like I said before, depending on the market we're in, when you're making an offer, that will dictate a lot of things, the timeline, the length of the timeline, etc. From a seller's perspective, the less contingencies that are built into an offer, the better, right? And not necessarily better for them in any particular way. I mean, it could be, right? Like they end up not making repairs for you, or maybe there's an appraisal contingency or not an appraisal contingency, so they're not fearful that the deal is going to fall apart. It's more about the amount of anxiety the seller may feel leading up to the close. So from a seller's side, they're just sitting back and waiting for the buyer to complete all of their inspections and get past any other contingencies, appraisal, financing. You may even have a home to sell contingency. That's a whole other separate one. We can talk about that later. And those are my specialty. I love them. So DM me if you've got a house to sell and you've got another one you want to buy. But having contingencies built in, it just means that maybe there's a longer time from the point of contract to the point of closing. So Tennessee, Georgia, most states are buyer beware states. So as a seller, don't be thwarted if you get an offer, especially in this market. If you get an offer that have a couple of contingencies in it, it's totally normal. That's actually what we see in a balanced market. Totally normal. If you as a seller see an offer come in that has no strings attached, no contingencies, they want a fast close, and it's a price that you can live with, that might be one worth taking. That would be probably pretty attractive and rare right now. I'm not seeing that a whole lot, but all that to say, it's normal to get inspections. It's normal to have questions about a house. No house is perfect. No house is perfect. It's normal to have questions about value. So when your bank is ordering the appraisal, the bank wants to make sure that the value is in line with the purchase price. Otherwise, they're only really willing to loan you a percentage of the purchase price, but up to the value that they find of that home. So let's say you're under contract at $450 and their appraisal goes out and says, no, this is only worth $420. So the bank is gonna say, okay, yeah, we'll lend you the money. But at $420 and you wanna put 10% down, so $42,000, do the math, that's $378,000 that they'll loan you. So you have to come up with a difference to get back up to $450 without an appraisal contingency built in. That's why that appraisal contingency is really helpful, because then you get the option to go back to the seller and say, hey, we have a problem on value. I'm going to really struggle with this $30,000 difference. I don't have the cash. Would you consider a different number? I know we already agreed at $450, but can we back that down? And oftentimes we find middle ground. Sometimes you're coming back down to the appraised price, and sometimes there's a middle of the road option that works as well. But all that to say, any questions about contingencies, how to make things work? I love it. These logistics are my jam. So just give me a call, DM me. Happy to help and explain them to you.